Okay, sir, we are live. Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Girish Likhiani, and this is the Underdog Dentist Show. We are today with Dr. Bhavdeep Singh Ahuja. This is our second Sunday in the Finance and Investment Sundays. We are doing a series with Dr. Bhavdeep Singh Ahuja. Let me introduce him. Dr. Bhavdeep Singh Ahuja is a renowned practitioner from Ludhiana with 21 years of clinical expertise. He is an alumnus of Punjabi University, Patiala. Dr. Bhavdeep holds a triple MBA in hospital management, finance, and HR and marketing. He also holds a PG diploma in medical law and ethics from National Law University. He has more than 75 original publications to his credit and lectures extensively on topics like practice management, medical law, ethics, consent, and finance for dentists. I welcome you, Dr. Bhavdeep Singh Ahuja. Please continue with the second Sunday on on record management and planning.
Thank you, Dr. Girish. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thank you, Dr. Girish, Dr. Vaibhav, and the whole team, Underdog Dentist Squad. This is the second in my series of the 4 Sundays we plan to take in June 2020 regarding the basics of the finance. Those who missed the first Sunday, the videos are there on the group, the Underdog Dentist Squad group on a Facebook. The normal and the SD versions both are available. In the first part, I had taken up how to increase your charges in post COVID-19 times, because we all would be having a lot of increased expenses, and accordingly the charges have to be raised, but they can't be, or they shouldn't be rather, raised in all the treatment protocols or the facilities or regimens we are offering. They have to be in the selective one, and I discussed in detail that various points I mentioned about the uh, the overhead and the expenses part. And obviously overhead expenses in itself a different topic altogether, so we had planned to take up overhead and expenses in some detail in this part, along with the record keeping and the basics of depreciation, balance sheet, and the basic system of books of accounts. I'll be giving a brief introduction. Today, the presentation is slightly longish. It might take a little more than an hour. I'll still try to simplify the things and not rush, because we have a slot of 1 hour, but I'll still try to make it simple. As usual, you can post your queries. Dr. Vaibhav is there in the background. He'll be sending the queries. Most of them, I usually take care that most of the queries are usually answered if you stay till the end. And those which won't be answered will be put up to me by Dr. Girish through Dr. Vaibhav in the end. So once again, thank you, Underdog Dentist Squad, and let's begin the show. So I'm sharing my screen. So this is part 2 of the mm, say squad. All my presentations always begin with thanking the Lord Almighty, who's given me much more than what I deserve. And my finance presentation can never be complete if I don't thank my dad, who has been my support system. I lost him. We lost him in the year 2019 on the last day of June. But he's always there with me. I know that. So this is my brief biodata. Dr. Girish already shared with you. So this is the second Sunday of June, where we'll be taking up practically the financial record keeping and the overheads or the expenses part. What exactly role the overheads and the expenses play? Please understand the logic, what I am trying to convey to you today. Many of you might find some missing links in the story, but the story began, as I said earlier, last week. So for some of you who didn't watch the first episode, you'll have to go back to watch the first episode and then rewatch the part 2 to understand this fully. So this is the topic we'll be taking up today. the salary of self, doctor, staff, income versus expenses, uh, calculating the net profit, how to maintain clinic records, bank accounts, cash or check, and what is the right way to maintain your bank account and how depreciation works. So, first of all, let me tell you that banking records, sorry, patient treatment records are different from, say, financial records. Why do I say so? Because patient treatment records might be in a different form. They might be in a software like Practo or a Bestosys or any XYZ software which you're using. Uh, Another part is that most of in them we don't have a segregated column where you can just take a daily daybook kind of a printout. So the patient record keeping is mandatory, no doubt, as I mentioned in the last episode. But it is done for the sake of DCA regulations also, apart from other reasons which I mentioned, which I normally say in my practice management workshops and lectures, because they give you a lot of idea about various things. Various things means where you are growing, how much is your conversion ratio, what exactly did you achieve in your treatment protocols, what exactly treatments are you usually catering to. As I said in the last one, you might be periodontist, but your major income might be coming from crown and bridge, which is not exactly your specialty. So you have to be very conscious and aware of your figures and numbers. So financial record keeping is mandatory for the sake of IT department, especially for those guys who are doing, say, following ITR 3. The self-employed people usually can file two ITRs, which will be taking up in the next, the part 3. Part 3 means the next Sunday on 21st June. But just to give you a brief outline, there are primarily 4 ITRs for individuals, although there are total in 7 ITR forms. But 1, 2, 3, and 4 pertain to individuals or HUFs. HUF means Hindu Undivided Family. Uh, 1 and 2 are basically concerning the salaried employee, salaried, or say the ones employed in various institutions or colleges. ITR 3 and 4 are basically for the self-employed people or falling in the schedule BP, business or profession. So the ITR 3 people mandatorily have to maintain records. But for ITR 4 people, books of account may not be mandatory. But for them, even for them, the say simple system of record keeping is mandatory, where you can show your input of income. You don't need to observe the bills for ITR 4, which will be taking up in the next part. But for even for say the ones who are for, say, filling up ITR 4 or the presumptive taxation form, even they have to maintain record keeping in the format which I'll be showing you. So this is the basic format which we call as the form number 3C. So you can just Google form 3C and you'll get a very small PDF file. It has just about 6 columns in it, and it is mandatory to be maintained by all the people who are maintaining clinics. So why I say so, that financial record keeping is to be done by you, and it is different from practice management record keeping, is because of this reason. In that you will be mentioning about all the details, especially the KYC part. Herein you don't need to maintain it. It is just a simple form: date, serial number, patient name, nature of the service rendered, fees received, and date of receipt. So these are the 6 columns. Out of them, they are not very tedious also. So, and sometimes we have to share the patient record also with the patient. Patient wants to see when did I get some things done or when did not. So you will not be feeling very comfortable showing the treatment fee charged against, written against the same in your software if you're forming this format. So this is a simple format, which is a kind of a daily case register. In the markets, those who are following manual system, for them there is a register available in market known as register D. It is almost equivalent to form number 3C. Form number 3 is a digital format of register D. So those who are doing manual records, they can use register D. But since it is the age of digitalization, even the DCI say encourages digital record keeping for your practice management part. Finance, I always suggest that you should rather use a digital format in your laptop or in your PC or in your tablet, in whatever digital way you're using in your clinic, because it is one simple system which will not take much of time, and there will not be many entries in the day. especially post COVID-19, there will not be huge entries. Even those who were having a OPD of 15, 20, 35, 40, 50, whatever numbers we had, even those will not be having the same number. So this kind of entry system is very comfortable and convenient for everyone for us to follow. I have tweaked. You can use this format in the Excel format also. I've tweaked this form and made a say different kind of a form. I'll be showing you that. So once you do it, it should have a date of receipt number. So the receipt is kind of a small booklet size, जिसको हम we call it in Hindi as the दान kind of a पर्ची, दान की पर्ची कटवाई. That size receipt. This is for any payment mode. Again, this can be in a digital format also. But for those who don't say trust the uh, digital format, there are many patients who will object to a digital format. Not all, but some. For them, you can use this manual thing. Then there is a different format known as a bill book kind of a thing. So this is a bill book, approximately A4 size paper, so which you can use. Remember, in both of them, your registration number is mandatory, mandatorily needed to be put in over there. So basically same. So different aspects. Herein you don't have to write the treatment details, just the payment details for the procedure done from this date to this date. Alongside, you can write treatment details on the prescription pad. This is a bill book. You can't actually make it. Obviously, if the patient has paid in different installments, then you have to write separate date wise in here also where you have received, and then you have to collate or combine the entries made here also. How that is why I have made a modified version of form 3C. Okay, I hope I'm clear. This is the modified version. The first 6 columns are same: date, serial number, patient's name, name of nature of professional services, fee received, date of receipt. The next 2 columns are e-receipt number and manual collation, or say if it is not clear, manual collating if any. This means that let's suppose you have accorded a receipt number 1 to your patient here. The patient insists that I want a manual receipt. I don't feel authenticity in this kind of a receipt. It is always better not to debate with such a patient and issue him this kind of a receipt mentioning, let's suppose the number mentioned is 101 over here. Collate the number over here, e-receipt number 1, manual receipt 101, so that your entries are not fudged. This ways you can prove it later on also that your record keeping has not been altered in spite of being in the digital format, because many colleagues will have this thing that kal ko case ho gaya, to how will we prove that our records are authentic? This receipt number and manual collating will help. So I hope I'm clear in this. So going back to the bill book slide, here you can mention, let's suppose the patient paid you in 4 installments. Then you can mention in here date, let's suppose 4th of January, 2000 rupees, 8th of January, 2000 rupees, wide receipt number. You have to mention the receipt number, either manual or e-receipt, whatever your system you are following. Both the systems are okay. I'm not encouraging, say you use a paper system. I encourage a digital system. But if the patient is not, say, happy with the digital receipt, or say a printout of the receipt in such a manner, better give this kind of a printed receipt. So you should have both of them in spite of following the digital system. And then you have to collate the 2 entries so that you don't get confused at the end of the year. So that is the reason we need to collate the 2 entries. Receipt number 1. Let's suppose the 4th patient in the list. The next patient, next to number 2 and number 3 patient, didn't object to the digital receipt. The 4th number of patient, digital receipt number 4, let's suppose, say again has an objection that I don't need this thing. Then you issue the receipt number 102 to him and collate it over here against the 4, against this thing. And similarly, you collate the entry over here. It is not at all difficult as it is sounding. You just have to make sure that the entries are not difficult for you to maintain at the end of the year. I don't encourage the total format in this, because at the end of the day आप सारे treatments की पर्चियां काटो, that is a very tedious job. So I encourage entry into this. And if any patient has demanded say manual receipt, just collate means combine and collect the both the things and merge it together. So that ways your that part is also taken care of, that the receipts are not fuzzed. So we discussed how to raise treatment charges in the last webinar. So I'll put it bluntly, actually not the treatment charges, but your expenses and overheads decide the profit. And we all know that loyal staff and associate is a big overhead for any clinic. Yes, they are a good asset, but overheads wise speaking, they are a big, say, chunk of investment which we make in our clinic. I'll show you how. So the first question is, do you pay yourself a salary? How much will you want your carry home income to be? We discussed in the last Sunday episode that whatever treatment regimens you follow, the number of overheads might remain in the range of 50%. Might be 40, 30 for some, might be 60, 70 for some, depending upon your setup, uh, depending upon your armamentarium and your, say, all the system you're following. So accordingly, the cost varies from the person. But remember, in that we had supposed that if you are, say, grossing rupees 2 lakh, and if your gross margin or the gross overhead is around in the range of 50%, you're carrying home only 1 lakh rupees approximately. So that was just to show as an example. So remember that 1 lakh is your only actual income or net carry home income. So going by the margin of, if I have supposed 50% in that. So you have to ask yourself a question. Are your skills getting paid? What margin do you want to carry home? 40%, 50, 60? We discussed last Sunday 8 scenarios in which if you raise 25%, see in the coming times your charges are going to the input costs are going to increase definitely in the range of 20%. Some might be having 25%, sorry. Some might be having 20%, some might be having 30%, but the average figure would be 25% as we had presumed. So accordingly, if you don't raise your charges, there will be a drastic reduction in the carry home income in the month. So again, for an associate, you have to ask a question, not the visiting specialist I'm talking, with whom we usually have a system settled already, that whatever, as Dr. Rajiv Verma also said, don't set a share system, just set us fee structure, that whatever you want, you say it, and then we can do it. You can do it that ways also, or you can do it in a share or partnership system also, whatever way it is comfortable to you. So is it annually revisable? I'm just talking for an associate, not for the visiting specialist. Associate, first of all, it is annually revisable. Then what kind of work are you delegating to the associate? Is he really indispensable? If he is, then definitely he is a part of your actual staff. And we see the associate staff being the most abused one in any, say, dental clinic. I'm not talking about the settled ones or, say, the smaller clinics. This universally applies to all. Of course, there are many exceptions, not a few, but many exceptions in there. So what kind of work you delegate will decide the raise. So the only thing is you should be confident enough of your associate, sorry. So then a similar question is for an assistant. Do you raise it annually? And believe me or not, this is one of the biggest overheads, because the more our dependence increases on our assistants, the more we are, say, getting used to 400 or 600 dentistry, the more our assistants are becoming say, indispensable part of our setup. And believe me, they're really hard to train, and really another, say, real hard to find. So, and yes, very difficult to retain also. You have to give a lot of incentives, because there are so many clinics opening up. They'll always have options and choices. तू नहीं तो कोई और सही attitude is applicable on everyone. So especially in these COVID times, it is difficult scenario. How long or how can you retain them? Because this is a catch-22 situation. I'll be discussing more on this once I discuss the overhead in today's session only. So stay tuned to that. So if we talk about the numbers part, A recent survey was done, and the sample size was not very big, but it revealed a kind of a very different scenario. No investment was 5%, high wax suction 38%, HEPA filters 38%, external suction 49%, PPs 87%, fumigation machine 63%. So rest upgrades were all desirable as negligible, less than 1%, which are anyways mandatory. So this was the equipment or the armamentarium part. So remember, as I said in the last episode, these will only have a portion of the income added to the cost. Let's suppose you buy a HEPA filter for 30,000 rupees, and it comes with the depreciation of 15%. So that means only 4,500 will be added as the cost of expenses of the same. 15% of 30,000 is 4,500. So only 4,500 will be added to the cost. You can't add 30% because it is an asset for your clinic. And depreciation means you add only the written down value or the wear and tear value. If I simplify it that way, it is only the wear and tear value which we really add in the expenses. I'll show you how. So we have to understand that the times are changing. The costs will be increasing as we mentioned in the last episode. So all there will be investments as I mentioned in the previous slide. We might be, say, some of us might be investing in all gadgets, some in few, some in only one or two. So it will depend upon your purchase power also, your say usability also, and say where the final buck sets upon, as I said earlier also, because I don't encourage any buying right now, because we still are not sure which equipments will be made mandatory by the government of India or the Ministry of Health or the Dental Council of India, which will be the final recommendations, and where will the actual say stoppage of the same will be. We actually really don't know now. We might be investing in an equipment which might be biting the dust in say 6 months from now, lying in a corner. And also practically say 60 to 70, maybe 75% of the clinics are small size clinics in India. They really can't afford all the guidelines to be followed. So many have written to the Niti Aayog also, which was supposed to come up with the guidelines in the first week of June 2020, but they have been delayed since the government has some other priorities right now. It is understandable. But yes, if the specifications come from the government side, the guidelines come from the government side, they'll come with a set of specifications as well. And I always believe that whenever the thing is made mandatory by the government, there will be a price tab on the item also. So it is better to wait unless you are really interested in starting the AGPs or the aerosol generating procedures in your clinic. So you have to understand that part. So expenses are like a small leak which can sink a great ship like Titanic also. So as the series goes, it is time to reboot and reset Clinic for Economics 2.0. So we discussed last time also that Facebook dentistry approach will have to be shunned away really, and we cannot be say very say indulge in impulsive buying whatever we can, because we usually are fond of following the colleagues irrespective of knowing whether the treatment sells in our clinic or not. So this is one point I like to always stress upon. Understand your numbers, understand where your primary income comes from. As I gave the periodontist example just a while ago. So you have to understand, maybe there are many clinics I know, they are good running clinics, but they don't have more than 5 to 7 or 10 RCTs in a month, but they are earning very highly. It is just a matter of luck. It is not that you don't know how to do RCT. It is a different position. Some things are dependent upon various factors. So all such bargain buys which we do in experiments will have to be eliminated from our future purchases. We have to look at our material buying pattern consumption wise. If you decide on the treatment part, you'll have to go back to the just as I laid out the base for the treatment part in the last episode. Now you have to go, yes, my 80% income is coming from, let's say, root canal in my clinic. So what are the expenses for a root canal, what are the say recurrent materials or instrumentations which I'm using. Remember, files might be a say instrument or an equipment kind of a thing, but they are counted in consumables, not under the depreciated equipment part. The rotary machine setup might be, but not the manual files. So some things are bought on the say garb of a good discount, say bulk buying. We indulge in that. So ultimately, they end up getting expired. So you have to really estimate those things which have been your silent killers of your revenue, I will say, because penny lost, penny earned is a penny saved, and a penny lost is a penny gone. So we have to understand this. So whatever equipment needs, we finally settle on the negative ion generator, HEPA filter, fogging machine, or whatever. We have to understand this assumes more importance in times to come, because we cannot control the revenue. You cannot really have a control over what will come via your patients, but what will you be consuming will be say decided by you only. And for that you have to indulge in smart buying. This is a smart age, and we have to indulge in some smartness in our profession also. So this will be a game of PPE versus PPP. So we all know what is PPE stand for. There will be refills for the equipment, wiping, cleaning, sanitizing, and there will be say PPE part also, which till now has not been made mandatory, of course. But yes, I believe as and when we start the AGPs, the PPEs will become a protocol for sure. And so the PPE has to be evaluated versus the PPP, the patient purchase power, which will definitely go down. At this point, I like to say on a lighter note, give the example of the Shah Rukh Khan say open arm pose, which is very commonly given by Shah Rukh Khan in almost every movie. So remember that openness has shrunk by one third approximately. Everything has rationalized from 100 to 65 to 70. The incomes might be rationalized, the expenses then will have to be rationalized. Our daily needs might be the same, but our daily wants, or not the daily wants but the overall wants, and our say wish locations will be slightly say nullified for some time. We are not going to go on a destination or a vacation for say next 6 months or so. So definitely that expenditure is going to be cut down by a great deal. And believe me or not, if those things are cut down, even if your income remains the same, we should not be bothered about that. As we discussed in the last episode also, the main aim should be to carry back home at least the same amount or maybe slightly more, which we can do by smartness, as I gave the formula for raising the cost in the last episode. So similarly, you can raise the cost, and of course the expenses, as I said, are going to increase in the range of 20 to 30%, average 25%. The expenses are going to increase. So if you smartly apply that, you will be carrying home same or even more amount, even if your revenue falls down. So your concern should not be what you are earning. Your concern should be what you are carrying back home, because that is the only thing which matters. The numbers, as I said, will be rationalized by one third. So the cost, revenue, and expense is a jigsaw puzzle. You have to really solve it, or your balance sheets will be bleeding. They will be in the red zone or the loss zone if you don't pay attention to them now. As I said, a small leak will sink a great ship. So apply the Pareto principle style price raise as we discussed in the first episode. So even if there is a drop in sales, the loss in carry home income won't be drastic. So let us see the numbers for costing in a table for a normal setup. If we discuss the numbers and the scenarios in the first one for the income part, let's see them for the expenses part. So this is just an hypothesis based on carried back on the last episode only. We assumed a figure of 2 lakh, the gross collection of 2 lakh in the last episode. So I'm carrying forward that only. So the overheads can be by different name: staff, lab cost, materials, occupancy cost like rent, office utility, repairs. They all have a percentage accordingly allotted to them. So administrative cost, marketing expenses, personal improvement. Some of you might not be having 5, 6, and 7, but there might be different expenses. So the basic aim is to give you a roadmap, not exactly. Just look at those numbers again. Staff, lab cost, material occupancy expenses like rent, utilities, repair, maintenance, office furnishings, administrative cost, marketing expenses, personal improvement. So all these we had assumed that our overheads are in this range. So be aware of these numbers, which are your biggest killers, which are your biggest saviors. This list might vary from one clinic to another. This is just to give you an idea. It is not the final list that everybody falls into this list, but as I said in the last episode, this is just to give you an idea. Everybody might not be grossing 2 lakh also. Some might be grossing less than that. Some might be grossing much more than that also. So the aim is to give you an idea. So as we assumed, the overheads are in the range of 50%. So the carry home amount in this assumed amount is 1 lakh rupees out of the gross 2 lakhs. So as I said, 5 to 7 may vary, but the contribution may be in the range of same. Those who don't have expenses in the range of 5 to 7%, as I said, the numbers might be 30 to 40. Some might be having an additional number in 8 or 9 also. So their expenses or overheads might be 60 to 70, as we said. So we have just taken the average of 50%. So this is one way of looking at this table is one way of looking at it. What is the other way? The other way is to look at the balance sheet, which is prepared by our CA. So we have to understand the IND. IND is the income and expenditure or the profit and loss statement. Let's just see how does it look like. I'll be showing you the half part of the balance sheet of the first page. Balance sheet is usually 2 pages. The first page is the income and expenditure plus the capital account. The second page is the asset and liability account. Some CAs use the capital account on the second page also. It's understandable. But the first page is profit and loss or income and expenditure. The second page is asset and liability. So just have a look at a demo account. On the right side, you have an income part by professional income. This is again, as we discussed last time, whenever I give numbers or figures, these are always supposed to be the annual ones. You take an annual figure, always take into consideration the annual figures and then divide it proportionately. I gave you the example of the restoration, that one restoration cannot be charged 3,000 rupees even in these times. If you are charging 1,000 presently and you add the cost of the 2 PPs and the other equipment, or or the other sanitization say protocols into that, you can't charge 3,000 for a restoration or a normal filling. What do you say? So accordingly, the cost has to be rationalized and the say gains and losses distributed evenly. So take the yearly figure. Let's suppose the figure has been taken as 675,723.57. Why in paisas? Because the income might be through credit cards or the swipe machines, which sometimes transfer in paisas also. So, and then on the left side, we have the expenditure: medicine and dental items, lab charges, rental charges, water, sewerage. All these things are expenses. Uh, Municipal, electricity, bank, telephone, assistant salary. Some might add the car petrol, the cell phone expenses, whatever are have been prepared by your CA, because very few of us prepare our own balance sheet ourselves. But then remember, these are the figures prepared by your CA if you have given him or her the exact numbers. If the numbers are not exact, then I'm sorry, this income and expenditure or profit and loss statement will not serve any purpose. Let's for a moment presume that these are the actual figures, which actually anyways should be also. So unless what is the relevance of actual generating figures, we'll be discussing in part 3 and part 4 about that. Just look at the bottom column: depreciation of fixed assets. What does this mean? As I said, you buy a HEPA filter for, let's suppose, 30,000, and you buy another gadget for say 20,000. Again, it carries a 15% depreciation. So presumingly these are the only two things you bought, and your old depreciation is 10,000. Old depreciation from all things other combined which are there in your clinic is 10,000 for this year. So you add for the HEPA filter, as we calculated, 15% of 30,000 is 4,500. and then 15% of the second gadget. Let's suppose the negative ion generator anyways is costly, but let's assume it is at 20,000. So 15% of 20,000 is 3,000. So what you do is how you add the cost. 10,000 for your existing, 4,500 plus 3,000. You will add a figure of 17,500 over here. A portion of the cost is there. As I said, it is the wear and the tear value or the written down value of the asset. Because asset means anything which has a life, 5 to 7 to 8 to 10 to 12, depending upon the depreciation charged on it. So remember, so whatever it is your income, add to this the interest income from the bank, roughly in the range of 725. If I say, then this all added is about 328. You add depreciation of 73 to it, you get a figure of 4,02,000. So if you deduct 4,02,000 from 7,25,000, you'll roughly get a figure of 3,24,000. This is your net profit, which will be carried forward. 3,24,000 is not an actual profit to show. You might be actually escaping the say income tax laws and not filing any tax. But what is its relevance? As I said, we'll be discussing in the part 3 and part 4. So let's continue to focus. You have to be aware of which part is your biggest killer, where you can make a cut, and accordingly you have to decide on the depreciation part also. You're not supposed to enter the full cost of the equipment, only the depreciated cost, and that too next year. How much to add? We'll be taking up the depreciation is in the last section of today's slides. So look which head costs you more, and where you need to know the actual numbers are coming from. As I mentioned in the last session, the material expiry and wastage of material by the assistant are the two biggest silent thieves of any small to medium clinic. We really don't know. The material gets say expired lying in the refrigerator. So material management is very important for an inventory part. Similar to an Amazon sale or a big bazaar, we sometimes indulge in impulsive buying, and we buy because it is selling cheap or we getting a deal on it. So which is actually wrong. Or sometimes we buy just based on optimism and ultimately end up expiring it. So remember, all the consumables are actually costing you some revenue. There are many other factors to it also. So as I said, the picture would be more clear when you open up the drawers of the refrigerator of your clinic, and you can see many things lying unused since many months. That is where I'll go back to the record keeping part of the practice management. As I said, you have to understand, and similarly, when we say applying the Pareto principle, you have to know where are your numbers coming from. You are earning mainly from Crown and Bridge, but you are investing a lot in your root canal equipment, which you're anyways doing around 5 to 6 say per month. So you might be buying a lot of gutter pachas, a lot of other say things like sealers or any other similar part, which might be incurring a lot of cost. So they might be lying unused and getting expired. Plus we are blocking our hard earned money. The say there are 16 types of costs. If we actually analyze which are applicable on us, we just look at the direct cost. So even the shelf life has a cost. The storage also has a cost. The blockage of finance, which could earn you some interest in a bank or in any scheme, is also a loss for you. So remember, I just mentioned 3 costs. There are total 16 types of cost. Might be taking up some other time on some other platform. But yes, these are the killers we need to have a close look at. Because if we don't understand this now, we have to remember the list I discussed with you here. Sorry. This is going to go bigger and bigger. You'll add alcohol to this, you'll add hypochlorite to this, benzalkonium chloride, or any quaternary ammonium compound, or any other thing to this also. The list will go on increasing, infrareds also. So all these things will go on adding and increasing your expenses. And obviously this will be decreasing in post COVID-19 times if you don't raise your charges applying to this thing. So as I mentioned, the theory of relativity by Einstein. So if you are earning 100 and this is 50, you are carrying home 50. But But if this has fallen down to 80 or 70, let's suppose 70, and this has risen by another, say, 10 to 60, what is your carry home income? Remember, it'll go down drastically. It'll just come down to 10 or 20 or maybe 30 of what you were carrying home earlier against the 50. So you have to understand the theory of relativity works in both the ways. I give a classical example of a train. Two trains going in opposite direction on this opposite tracks, parallel tracks, in at the same speed of 80. The person sitting in the A train will feel that the other train is going at the speed of 160, not 80, and his train is say standing still. This is what actually the theory of relativity says. So remember, the relative difference will be, it'll be going down from this side and it'll be going up from this side. The sooner we realize the killers of our practice, the better it is for us. So as I said, material expire is one of the biggest, one of the two biggest thieves, and sometimes even bigger than the bad debts. We always complain, wo patient itne paise nahi de ke gaya, a bad debt in your practice. So, but then material expiry is sometimes even a bigger killer. You have to understand that. So, the inventory control will only come from your record keeping only. Again, going back to the basics, the record keeping will tell you which are your paying items, which are your paying treatments. So actually, you don't have to get lured when you get a good deal for any expensive material, but you don't have any patients for. As I said, if we buy in the say optimism that we might get a patient, और एक patient में ही मेरा पैसा पूरा हो जाएगा, एक patient में cost recovery हो जाएगी. Then again, what are we looking at? The purchase cost or the actual cost. Is the same thing, say, used to give you the same revenue every time? You have to remember this. You are not there to just complete the cost. We are there to earn. So you have blocked your finance also for that reason. So this is one of the strangest economic thoughts which people usually incur when buying items, so or getting lured. And believe me or not, social media has got to play a big role. People get lured by colleagues doing wonderful work. I am not against it. Doing wonderful work. They are obviously having patients of that genre. If you are not having, understand your limitations. Why are you indulging in something? You won't be left behind. The YOLO and the FOMO approach, you only live once. This is our rebirth post COVID-19. Remember that. We are already living twice. So if we are lucky to escape 2020 unhurt, except financially and except mentally, which is again a silent killer. So count your blessings and count yourself lucky. So this is for you to realize this part. So colleagues always crib that they usually don't have even expenses in their monthly income covered. So they need to think about such overheads because every patient will contribute to the clinic expenses. So economics is not really difficult if we have a realistic look at it in a practical way, not in a theoretical way. I always believe that the way or the approach has to be really practical in our this thing. So overhead is a key factor in any business, and dentistry is of course not an exception. So look at various heads or various opportunities where you can decrease your unnecessary expenses. So understand your average monthly cost. As I said, look at the yearly figures and then calculate your monthly cost from that. Don't use an individual month because individual month might be giving you skewed figures. It might be invariably high, sometimes it might be invariably low also, and not exact indicator of that. I am always a fond of giving, say, taking the annual figures. So always try to make a successful financial model. The bottom line will for overhead will remain is that limited overhead means a larger take home. So as I gave you an example in this slide, let's suppose your income remains 100, or let's say it drops down to 90. This part you have curtailed and you carry it down to 35 from 50, which we had presumed earlier. So what do you carry back home? 90 minus 35, 55. You were carrying back earlier 50. So just with smart application in this head, and we can say be very say consistently earning good. The rosy part out of all this is that the financial year has just started. Even though we are almost 2.5 months into the financial year, the actual working has not yet started. Or for whom, whichever people or say colleagues are in green zone, for them also even it hasn't started since the past 15 days. So there is time to implement the, say, foundation of this formula, which I gave you in the last and giving you here also. Just look at those killers which you say indulge for, say, impulsive buying. Limited overhead will always mean a larger take home from your clinic. So the best way is always to have a strong system in place and a proper form of accounting process to keep a track of profit and loss, because otherwise decreasing overheads will be a bumpy ride. The moment any dealer says डॉक्टर साहब ये 1,000 की है, दो लोगे तो आपको 1,900 की पड़ेगी, and we indulge in buying. 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, even the first bottle hasn't finished up. So I have burnt my hands very badly at material management in the first 8 years of my life, 8 to 9 years rather. I first got to know of material management in 2007. So I learned it from NHFW, National Institute of Health and Family Welfare, Munirka, where I did my 1 year course. So in say healthcare management, or hospital management, and another one then HCW, healthcare family welfare management also. Obviously, the basic agenda behind that was to say get the doctors trained in the management part. These two courses were done by me even before my MBAs. So it actually gave me an idea that what I have been doing. And believe me, ever since say those years, I have smartly applied those things in my practice. And yes, I still have failures, I still have losses, but they are never in the tune of what cannot be digestible by me at this stage. So again, you have to be aware of your numbers, where you can decrease. You have to analyze which heads can be strongly decreased or which are useless ones. Accordingly, you can make a, say, curtail in that. So just to give you an example, just to give you a very short example, uh, we all of us live in a nuclear or a joint family. So we all have basic needs of telephone, mobile phones, landlines, and even say Wi-Fi connections. So I just calculated last year, I'm talking 2018, I just calculated that my folks were always cribbing about low speed or no network or this thing, and I was paying actually more. So what I did with smartness, I just changed the connections in a way that just about by changing the connections to Reliance Jio and a few other smart changes, the total annual bill fell down by 15,000. And this is a say calculated thing by me. It actually did. And the benefit, the cribbing also stopped because the networks are better over here, and obviously the speeds were increased. So and everybody has a 1.5 GB per day on his own, so there is no problem on that side also. So think smartly, think where you can reduce. Just a small example. So see the various categories, as I said, the lab, taxes, water, sewerage, printing. List them down, analyze where you can make the cutback, and then where you think you can, go ahead and do it. If you're not successful, fine, it is. We all are humans. We make mistakes. Go and recalculate. So take the help of your CA where you can do. But then, as I said, you have to work in sync with your CA. You have to give him actual numbers. We meet him only once or twice a year to give a few passbooks only to for the interest part. The rest, income and expenses, is arbitrarily put in by the CA himself without we knowing where we are. So we're just moving blindly in the direction of income and expenditure. We don't know actually where our say income is coming. We just know itna bacha tha, itna nahi bacha tha. That is the bottom line. And that is actually a wrong attitude to have. For any business, a profit and loss is a very, say, important aspect. So as I said, you have to, we presume 50% on the overheads. If we take home 50 of every 100 rupees that comes, so you have to understand where the, say, fault lies. So if our revenue goes down by 20, the take home will drastically reduce by 40%, which is a significant drop. In the last episode, I presume that the cost will also decrease proportionately, whereas in actual they might not, because overhead is sometimes your own choice of how to operate. And the part which I didn't discuss or presumed in the last episode was I proportionately decrease the cost, whereas in actual the situation might be slightly different. We deal with two types of expenses: fixed and variable. Fixed, where we have little or no control, like rent, salaries, bills, electricity, water, sewerage, telephone. And the variables ones are, say, lab bills, or say higher electricity bills, especially in North India, where we use increased ACs for around 4 to 5 to 6 months sometimes. So these are the variable expenses. We all were incurred with fixed expenses in the past 2 months, and we raised such a hue and cry. We are all ridden with the, say, as I said, 5 types of expenses I mentioned in the last one. The only ones which mattered were the rent and the salaries, and of course, a few bills part. But still, there were no material consumption, there were no lab consumption. We were not using our skills, so we were not getting paid for that also. So why was such a hue and cry made over that part? I can understand uh, for a few who are beginners or absolutely new into practice, or 0 to 3 years, they always believe and say, I fall in the medium range, if I can say so. But the youngsters always crib about this one aspect, कि आप तो बड़े लोग हो, आप तो सेटल्ड हो, आपको क्या फर्क पड़ता, आप तो 6 महीने भी अपनी जेब से खा लोगे. The problem is not such. If you are earning 1 lakh and carrying home 50,000, let's suppose, he's earning 10 lakh and carrying home 6 to 7 lakhs. His loss is bigger than you. The actual might be, carry home might be 50% for both, 50% of the gross, if I may talk. But your loss might be 50,000 per month. His loss might be 5 to 6 lakhs per month. So the settled ones have a bigger loss. Don't think that you are in a graver position than the bigger shots. They have a calculated expenditure. They have an actual lifestyle, say pertaining to, or say corroborating with their say lifestyle. Their expenditures are there, so accordingly their incomes need to be higher. Yes, they'll also need to make the cuts, but this part you have to understand that it is not that your loss was bigger, their loss was bigger than you proportionately, if you talk about the money part only, not in the percentage part. So the more lab work we have, sometimes the higher are the lab costs. But lab cost doesn't always represent increase in output and revenue, as except for some small to medium sized clinics, where the proportionately is, we can say, the generation of revenue is primarily or 80% from the, say, crown and bridge part only, or the lab work part. So I mentioned in the starting slides about the staff overhead, which becomes overloaded in say established clinics, which have multiple staff members, 5 to 6 to sometimes even 10 members, so sometimes even more. So see, this is a catch 22 situation for us. We want to give incentives to our staff to say retain them. Staff retention is a big headache. A trained staff retention is a even bigger headache. So you can't ditch your staff now, you can't downgrade their salaries post COVID-19, but the solutions have to be found out. So there you always be, say, fearful of the fact that kahin ye mujhe chhod na jaye. So it is very difficult. So the solutions can be only two: either the income increases, which is highly unlikely in the immediate scenario, immediate next 2 3 months. We are all facing uncertainty of starting our procedures fully, especially the ones in the metros, Delhi, Bombay, and even in Punjab now. The weekend lockdown has been implemented. Or decrease in the overheads other than salary. Salary for the multiple staff will always remain the one of the biggest overheads in any clinic, any established clinic, if I may say so. So what is the solution? For the next 1 year, I'll suggest to shift to an incentive system rather than a raise, till the OPD, regular OPD, normalizes. Obviously, every bad thing will come to an end one day. So will the COVID-19 episode. So be optimistic about it. So till the regular OPD normalizes for any clinic, you can take care of the financial burden accordingly. So the decrease, other decrease can be from decrease in supply of materials, or curtailing your wish list. As I said, because of the FOMO approach or the social media dentistry, where we try to copy each other. So like I said, a small link will sink a great ship. I'll always say control the inventory and control the profits. The profit is in your hand. You cannot really control the revenue part. You can control the charging part, but you can't control the patient footfall in coming times. But what you can do is, by implementing smart changes in your practice of raising the charges, you can do that, as we discussed in last issue. And in this issue, the carry home point will be, if you control the inventory, you can control the profits accordingly. If your costs are less, obviously your carry home will remain same or even more. So it'll mean you have to understand, you what take a stock of what you have, what you need. Again, it'll imply going back to your basics of your record keeping only. So volume discount or bulk buying can be done. I'm not against it. Yes, there will be experiments, there will be trade shows happening. June, we used to have a Famden show also in Mumbai. So I don't think so it'll be happening this time in June at least. So if you want to buy a thing which you have a consumption item but still don't want to say get a stock of it, get uh, together with like-minded colleagues and get a bargain deal out of a bulk discount, or say bulk buying in multiple numbers, which should be divisible amongst number of people. So not say you indulge in bulk buying because of the offer part. So always resort to economic order quantity. There will be say always a debate about, when we say this is a, say, a formula which is implied in any marketing industry or any hospital management industry, that if you procure the item in small consignments, you'll have more lead time and say more purchase costs and more carry costs. Of course, we don't face such kind of costs, as I mentioned, the different 16 type of costs. But for them, we have to resort to EOQ, where a quantity at which the sum of ordering and inventorying is least. This is known as the economic order quantity. So what are the broad aims? The broad aims are only say very simple. We should have the material when we require, and we should minimize the ineffective things, so, and optimize the cost accordingly. So for them, yes, again, this is again a very vast topic in that sense. So for effective management, we have different analysis also: the ABC analysis, the VED analysis, the HSN analysis. uh, these are the various analyses which are there, which can be, say, deliberated for next 2 hours if I may go on. But yes, I have to draw a line somewhere. So we have to assess the requirement of our inventory, and the funding will obviously be constrained. We can't be buying things from our own pocket. Presently, we have been, for say changing our guidelines, we, for being COVID ready for our clinic, we have been buying from our pocket only. We have to understand the lead time. It will be supplied when it will be supplied to us, and we recently saw the dealers playing harakiri. They just say merged the MHFW and the CDC guidelines on a single paper, and say advertise HEPA 13 filters mandatory for clinics. So that was a very bad say marketing move by them. But yes, people caught it up. So still there is no official word which all gadgets have to be bought. So kindly scrutinize before falling prey to such buys. So as I mentioned about the record part, this will tell you where your services are contributing in that ways. So let's come to the other heads. Quickly winding up, we're almost say 1 hour into the presentation. So I'll be going with the other basics parts. So bank account management, a normal common myth is you should keep only one account. Believe me, I'm pretty much against it. I can openly say I'm pretty much against it. But that does not mean you can have 15, 16, or 20 accounts. But the only reason is, I always advise a separate account for a personal, professional, and other expenses. What I mean by that is, usually, say, current account or say savings account, they only have a difference in the number of transactions to be made. Some people have a, say, huge say counter means the grossing of the money in the daily schedule. Some people have comparatively less that they can afford to do it. So the basic difference between saving and current would be that every branch, or every bank, sorry, every bank will allow 4 to 5 IBTs. IBT means in branch transactions, and that means only deposit and removal. What do I mean by that? Via check removal, or via deposit via say counter slip or a deposit slip, you can say. So the number of ATM transactions, 4 to 5 separately, are not counted in this. The number of check clearings, unlimited, are not counted in this. Mostly banks don't have a tab on the check clearing part. The number of NEFTs or RTGS, definitely the dentists are not going anyways to make a huge number of the same. They are not counted in this. It only pertains to IBT, in branch transactions, only deposit and removal. So those who are depositing once a week, for them even a savings account will do, because they will never need say more than that, usually if there are 4 weeks in a month. But those who are grossing a good amount in one day or maybe 2 days or even in 3 days, and don't want to keep a huge cash at home, they'll always prefer or should prefer a current account, which usually most of the accounts of the variants, say 10 to 20,000, come with unlimited current account transactions. There is no bar on that. Yes, a few banks are also playing smart now. They are limiting current account transactions also, but kindly check your account variant. So thereby you can say manage it. So one another banking tip I will give to you is that usually private banks offer you family banking. What do I mean by that is, family banking, your whole obviously you will be having parents at home, wife, children. You can open accounts for them and then merge all the accounts in the family banking or the privy league or any kind of a system. The bank, Yes Bank has a say family banking name, Kotak has a privy league scheme. The RBL Bank has a Expedia and other variants, kind of a clubbing, where you can actually club your accounts. The clubbing of the accounts will give you a benefit that the total, according to your variant, the total business or the total say amount pending in those accounts should be in the range of 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 15 lakh, according to your account variant. And accordingly, if your current account is also there, you can keep your current account at a zero balance, so that you don't lose out on any interest on that part also. So this is a carry home tip for you. So you can use your primary bank, preferably a private bank. Don't be afraid of your money going anywhere. I always say this: all the banks, private or nationalized, they all are legitimate sons of RBI. No one is illegitimate. The only illegitimate ones are the cooperative banks, because they are not scheduled. They are not covered under. Most of them are not covered under the RBI guidelines, and we have around 1,563 cooperative, roughly more than 1,550 and less than 1,600, roughly 1,563 cooperative banks in India right now. We remember what happened to the PMC Bank in November in 2019. The tab was there. The tab is still there. And Yes Bank fiasco happened on 5th of March. I remember it was my family member's birthday, and we were dining in a restaurant on 5th of March when this news of Yes Bank fiasco came in, and they gave a moratorium till the 3rd of April, 28 days or 29 days of moratorium. And the Yes Bank was back on its feet, courtesy the efforts of RBI, SBI, and investment by Federal Bank, Kotak Bank, and a few more. And it was back on its feet and regularized the operations from 16th of March in just a matter of 11 days. So why do we fear? In any case, the DIGCI insurance is now from 1 lakh to 5 lakh for our accounts. So you can be assured that your 5 lakh of the amount is safe in any bank. So don't be afraid about a private or a nationalized bank. This is a theory or this is a myth I'll like to happily shun away. We have been guided by our parents or our forefathers or whatever, uh, friends and well-wishers, that nationalized bank safe hota hai, private mein paisa डूब jata hai. I'm sorry, this is a wrong myth. I'm using two words together. This is a wrong myth. Myth is itself a wrong thing, but to compound it further, I'm saying it is a wrong myth. So what I was saying was that yes, if you are using a current account for your clinic, let's suppose, again, I'll be talking about the actual numbers. You are depositing the whole money into your bank account or whatever your clinic collection is. From there, Via net banking, yes, avail net banking facilities. It will be very cumbersome for you to go to bank again and again, and it is not difficult at all. Use preferably use your laptop or a secured network or a PC or a desktop for transactions. Avoid mobile for financial transactions, except for small ones. I do not encourage at all, because the mobile is one little small device without any, say, safety feature in that sense. It has no antivirus, it has no malware detection, it has so no other firewall kind of a thing. So I am not very comfortable using it. You might be very adept, you might be very comfortable, you might be very, say, settled into using it, but I do not encourage it at all. I prefer to use, and do not use it on a public network also. So use it on your own network, from your own home, and on a say a fixed device like a desktop or a laptop. So that is what I'll advise. So let's suppose you have, again, I'll take the figure as 2 lakhs. So let's suppose you have deposited 2 lakhs into your current account for the month of June 2020, let's suppose. So what will you do? You have taken care that 50,000 is your monthly needs expense. Monthly needs expense means that your, say, any daily bills to be paid for home, I'm talking, not for the clinic part. uh, you have roughly expense of 50,000 per month. What you'll do is you will transfer that amount on the first or the second or whatever date you have kept for your system. It is not hard and fast. You can do on any date. Transfer that 50,000 into your savings account, from where you pay your utilities bills, or from where you have a ATM and you indulge in buying for, say, from a big bazaar, or a, say, any Reliance store, or anywhere where you are doing buying, or maybe some cash buying also. If you are indulging, then you can withdraw the money and use cash from there also. Do that from there. Do all your clinic expenditure payment part from your current account only. So for that reason, you'll be clear. Again, then I suggest a separate account. Although the third option is not mandatory, but I strongly suggest, transfer 50,000, whatever your monthly SIPs are going, transfer it also to another account, whichever you're holding in same bank or a different bank. Obviously, you can't hold two saving bank accounts in same bank. So transfer it to a different bank via NEFT, from where your investment or the SIPs are generating, or from where you make your other investments. What I'm trying to say is you can simplify your system. At the end of the year, if you use only current account, or your, say, only single account for transactions, you bought a ticket for a Salman Khan movie on a Eid in May 2020. Obviously, it was not released, but let's assume you bought a movie from Book My Show for 459 rupees. In the next July, when you 2021, when the CA will be filing the return, he will be scratching your head. What is this 459 rupees? Or you spend a 236 rupees over a Domino pizza, a 200 plus 18% tax. What was this 236 which I spent one year and 3 months back? You'll be scratching your head. My dad has always taught me one thing: always keep your personal and professional transactions separate, never mix both of them. So, if you have a system like this, you will know that your current account will only have your clinic transactions, deposit, and whatever payments you make. Then your personalized account, a personal account where you transfer 50,000, it might be more, it might be less sometimes. If you are needed, if you need more, you can transfer it later also. Let's suppose you had an additional expenditure of 10,000, transfer it from your current account to that by 10. So whatever entry you make over there, that is your drawings, or your, say, personal expenses. Income tax department has no correlation with your personal expenses. They are not really bothered. They are only bothered with what you deposited and what is your expense. That is your current account only. Obviously, that does not mean that you don't have to show it. As per IT laws, even except the dormant accounts, all the accounts are needed to be shown. And I always advise to keep separate accounts for personal thing, for investment, and for clinical expenditure. And the number can be more. The number, the same can be, this is my wife's account, this is my mother's account, this, the number, if you are the one who are handling it, the headache is on you. So you have to remember that you do it in such a manner that the handling becomes easy. Make your life easy. You're making it easy for you, for your CA, and for your own tracking of the expenses as well. If you're using one account for every purpose, you are actually confusing or say collating things for later muddle in the coming 15 months when you'll be filing your IT return. So, as I said about current and saving, I hope that is clear. Then a very common question is there, uh, which name do you want to keep your current account in? Clinic name or the personal name? Believe me or not, you have to trust me, take my word for it. Income tax department does not say has any difference whether the account is in your name or in your clinic's name. They just need the account details. This is a myth, again a wrong myth, I will say, propagated by our CAs only कि clinic के नाम पे account खुलाओ. और problem आ जाती है whenever we go to a bank, the bank demands a clinic KYC. Obviously some banks are kind, they say on behalf of, they allow you the KYC from you or say authorized signatory, but some say make you indulge in more of paperwork. So that is where we get say really say flummoxed ki what are we doing actually. So in your name or in clinic's name, the income tax department cares a damn. They really don't care. So if, as I said, if it is high valued, if you have a good counter, good deposits, go in for a current account, otherwise go in for a saving account for your deposit. But yes, you have to segregate your personal and professional transactions. So the cash payment part. So you cannot take more than 2 lakhs from any patient for your cash payments in your clinic for any single episode. It can be per day or it can be divided. So above 2 lakhs has to be in a digital way. You can't do a thing that आज 2 लाख ले लेते हैं, कल फिर 2 लाख ले लेंगे या महीने बाद 2 लाख ले लेंगे. This is not to be done. Because when the patient will ask for a bill, the bill will have to be given for 4 lakhs. And then if you have taken a cash payment of 4 lakhs, you will be in a soup. You will be the one who will be bearing the penalty. A similar thing applies in hospitals also. They obviously apply the correct system only, so they know it how to use it. Even if your bill is 3.5 lakh rupees, they'll ask you to pay the same amount in digital mode only. Then 20,000 limit has been imposed by say any cash buying of property or any loan given or taken cannot be more than 20,000 in cash from a friend or a family member or in any way in cash. Above that, it has to be in a digital mode. Then the most important thing, 10,000. The 10,000 is your anything or any expense of your clinic. If it is bought above 10,000, it is not permissible as expenses in your say balance sheet. You will not be allowed unless it is in digital mode. These are all the bars on cash transactions. The digital mode can be unlimited. There is no bar on that. Try to understand that. So anything, even if it is for 10,500 rupees, let's suppose your lab bill comes out for May 2020, which gone by. Let's presume, obviously we didn't have it, but let's presume your lab bill for May 2020 was 10,500 rupees. What you do is pay him 10,000 in cash and pay 500 in check. Sorry, not allowed. You have to pay the whole in digital mode. If it is less than 10,000, you can pay in cash. The 2,000 cash bar is for donation to political parties. It has to be in a say digital mode above 2,000 rupees. So I hope I make myself clear in these 4 aspects. So next we come to the almost the last heading before deposition, the books of accounts. The books of accounts are basically mandatory for, as I said, for ITR 3 people. People who file ITR 3, we'll be discussing those in the next session. So books of accounts are mandatory for them. These are basically, they include all the income, expenses, asset, liabilities, all your say daily counter, all your bookkeeping, which we call it, and it is compulsory required for ITR 3 people. And ITR 4 people have books of accounts waived off from them, but even they have to say mandatorily maintain the form 3C, which I showed you in the start of this thing. So this is I'll be sharing the balance sheet. As I said, we what we call as the balance sheet. These are two A4 size pages. The top of the first page starts with I&E, or the profit and loss, which I shared with you before. The same page, when continued below, has a capital account. Just see depreciation, surplus, and interest income. If we go to the next page, the same things. The bottom is the capital account. The capital account is basically your jama punji. It is your total net worth. It is also known as the net worth of an entity. So in this case, the net worth of an entity is 18,44,000. So this is the number usually banks look at when they say accord you loan. Obviously, the CIBIL score is also taken, but if I talk in banking language, the common Hindi language they use is उसकी किताबें कितनी कमजोर हैं, कितनी कच्ची हैं. For a dentist with a 18,44,000 say balance sheet, it is a very poor balance sheet. Very kachi kitabin, if I say that. So as this was the first page, so this is the second page. As I mentioned, this is the asset and liability account. In this, your all the deposits, fixed deposit, saving bank, current account, cash in hand, and your fixed assets, where you calculate the depreciation. This is the, if you see at the figure, the depreciation figure was 73,000 over here. How did we reach at this figure? We add, say, this is the depreciation 44931, then 1702. Go to the next part of the same page, only continue down. 1702, then add say 10,000, then add 8,000, then add 8,500. You will arrive at a figure of 73,000. What was there? So what actually is this? Furniture and fixtures, the computer equipments, electrical assets, laptop, whatever, the clinic, the medical, starting with the medical equipments, all have been given a written down value. So this is actually the balance sheet which I teach in my workshops. This is not very difficult to prepare. So which candidates learn even just in 2 hours if they pay good attention to this. So the next is how to maintain your book of accounts. There are two systems of accountings followed by CAs. One is the mercantile basis, one is the cash basis. 90% of the CAs follow the cash basis. What is the broad difference between the two? So mercantile basis means, let's say your lab issued a bill on 1st of March. The bill reached you by courier on 5th of March. You paid a payment of the same. You issued a check on 10th March, and the bill was there were 2 holidays in between and a Sunday. So the check was cleared on 15th of March, 1, 5, 10, and 15. So if we are using a cash system, we will enter a date of 15 March, the day actual debit happened from our account. If you are using mercantile system, we will enter 1st March for the bill date and 10th March for the check date. Mercantile means as and when it arose. Cash basis means as and when it actually happened. We don't show our face to our CA throughout the year, just once or twice, or maybe on the phone. In the end, we just give him the passbook, give him the statement, whatever documents he demands. And then we try to understand that ye kis cheez ka payment hai, ye kis cheez ka payment hai. We just convey, and it notes it down in his diary. What he sees your passbook, the day actual entry happened. There will be some confusion for some people. Let me give you an example. So I'll give you an example of the same via depreciation. So when I say of the depreciation, it is basically a written down value or the wear and tear value. Each year, a small portion of the cost is expensed and allowed to be reduced from your income. If you buy a HEPA filter for 30,000 at the depreciation of 15,000, only 4,500 will be added as its wear cost. This is called as the depreciation of that. The next year, the depreciation will be taken not on 30,000, subtracting 4,500 from 30,000, we are left with 25,500. Next year, it will be 15% on 25,500, the actual value at that time. Remember, whenever a car gets out of the showroom, immediately its value goes down by 5%. If you if you want to say sell the car back to the car showroom owner, they'll buy it back after 5 minutes at 5% less. So when it hits the road out of the showroom, the car, just to give you an example. So as I gave you, this is the amount, how it was calculated out there. So there are different slabs, 5%, 10, 15, 40, and 60. Most dental and medical equipment fall in the range of 15%, unless stated otherwise. So most equipments will have a 15% written down value. The furniture, fixture, and fittings of your clinic will have a 10% depreciation. The electrical fixtures, the electrical switches will have a 15%. That includes your glow sign or the neo sign boards also. Then computer and laptop used to be 60, but now it is 40%. The land in the building is 5%. So there is a clause in depreciation also. You get if you buy say after 3rd October, it is not a special date. The only thing is by 3rd October, 185 days. 3rd October is usually the 185th day of the year. So that means if you buy after 3rd October, on 4th October, there are less than 180 days remaining. The clause is 180 days remaining. It is not 6 months or something similar, or a 2nd October or a Gandhi Jayanti date or anything. It's not. It's actually less than 180 days remaining. For 2019-20, it was, the cutoff was 4th October because we had an extra day in February 2020. So even if you buy on the last day of the year, 31st March, when we talk of the financial year, it is from 1st April to 31st March. Even if you buy on 31st March, you are allowed half the depreciation for that year. So it is always better if you are buying heavy equipment like a OPG or like any other say equipment which you are going to add in your practice, can be a microscope also. Always buy in the first half of the year before 3rd October, so that you can avail the full depreciation for that. So as I said, problems happen sometimes with the North Indians when they buy in Expo in Delhi. So let's suppose they bought a RVG for 1,30,000 in March. 50,000 was given in March, 50,000 in April, and 30,000 in May. How to mention it? How to avail the depreciation? If I count it vis-a-vis the mercantile and the cash basis, the difference is, if you're following the system, when is your check cleared, March or April? You must have seen many times you issue a check to your dealer or a lab, who usually say presents it to the bank in the first week of April, and you put an entry on your records as the last entry of your March, whereas he kept the check for 10 days with himself. So always try to settle your accounts before 31st March, and always try to do it digitally. I have my lab and my dealer and my biomedical waste and say assistant. All the accounts are linked wherever the payments are. Anyways, if they're more than 10,000, I have to make it digitally only. So I always make it sure that all my payments are done by 29th or 30th of March digitally, so that I am ensured that I am not carrying forward my expenses. It is your way. You can carry it forward also, but then it increases your tax liability for that year if your expenses are not added in that month. So as I asked, when is your check cleared? March or April, if the dealer placed it with himself or the lab guy didn't present it to the bank. The second thing, how is your CA preparing your accounts, mercantile or cash system? So let's see, how do we avail the depreciation? We bought a RVG for 1,30,000. In the cash basis, we will avail the depreciation only on the 50,000 paid, because our account will have only one entry of 50,000 debit, not for the remaining 80,000 whose checks or deposits will be made in say April and May. So that means you get only, first of all, the depreciation will be 50% for the year, not 15%, but 7.5. So you get 7.5 on 50%. So for a 1,30,000 gadget, if you are paid in full, you get more depreciation. But whereas you are getting a depreciation of 3,700, 500 on that only. Next year, what will happen? you will get a depreciation on 80,000 plus deduct this amount from here. You'll get 46,250. So you will get a deduction on 1,26,250 rupees, 15%. Am I clear? I hope so, because you get deduction on this amount only. This is the beauty of depreciation. So you add your RVG, say wear and tear cost of 3750 only in your balance sheet. So remaining, as I mentioned, so if we take it for the next year, 15% of 80, as I mentioned, 46250 will be remaining. If you add the two for the next year you will get about 18,937.50. Whenever it is more than 50, we round it off to the next digit. If it is less than 50, we round it off to the earlier digit. So 18, 19, 38 will be your depreciation for the next year. Just look at it once again. 15, I just done it separately for your simplification, whereas I told you if you can add it, you can do it that way also. 80 plus 46, 1,26,250 also you can do at 15%, or separately do and then add both of them. So on 80,000 it will be 12,000, and on say the 46,250 it will be 6,937. You add two and you get depreciation of, this is your say RVG cost for the, or depreciation cost for the whole year for the next financial. The previous financial, it just had 3750. So this is the difference between the cash and the mercantile system. I'm sure the way we dentists work, our CAs would be following the cash system only. So better you inquire it from your CA. So this is how you arrive at figure of 73416 for this account when you add the say various depreciations calculated separately. So, what is the carry home gyan for today? We all make mistakes. Even those who are experienced like me in such matters, we still make it. It's okay. It's okay. There is nothing wrong in it. We shouldn't be fretting or frowning over it. Life is a learning curve for everyone. Try not to repeat those mistakes as much as you can. On a lighter note, always make new ones. Why do I say so? I was finalizing my presentation when the say sad news of Sushant committing a suicide. Say Chore has been one of my favorite movies. Remember a guy giving us a lesson for that success के बाद का plan सब बताते हैं, लेकिन गलती हो जाए तो फेलियर से कैसे डील करना है कोई बात नहीं करना चाहता. I'm sure in the past 1.5 hour there might be some update. There might be actually more details coming by tomorrow, but as of now the position is that he has committed suicide. So we have to understand success is really a relative term. Nobody of us is perfect, so don't even try to be a one. Always try to continually improve yourself, be a better version of yourself compared to last year. You're answerable only to yourself, and please, please, please don't curse or crib your beautiful profession. We are bound for creating smiles, and we have no right to do so. So isn't it ironical that we should fight and live, and today he committed suicide himself? Life is so unfair. Just because in the movie his say son tried to commit a suicide, and he had his father to tell him a story that he should not. He didn't have anyone above him to do so. So every such desperate act might be appearing as a all of a sudden attempt to some of us, but there is always some story of hurt, neglect, pain, and sorrow. And it is, but it might not actually be one moment of madness. If you have not been for colleagues, this is a very strong message for you. If you have not been rich and successful through dentistry, my advice it to would be to change your profession, because successful life is very different from happy life, and we should all strive to be happy in life, because nothing can buy happiness in life. There is no substitute for that. So हम हार जीत सक्सेस फेलियर में इतना उलझ गए हैं कि ज़िंदगी जीना भूल गए हैं. सक्सेस में अगर सबसे ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है तो खुद ज़िंदगी में, सॉरी, है सबसे ज़्यादा कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट है तो खुद ज़िंदगी. नेवर गिव अप ऑन लाइफ. Learn to love yourself. Thank you so much for a patient hearing. Just a few announcements which I'd like to make. You can get in touch with me. Of course, I'll be taking up the queries after this session, whatever Dr. Girish and Dr. Weber will be posting to me. So my email is this, the website drbhavdeep.com. So I'm there on social media as well. You can get in touch with me over there. So I have a YouTube channel also. This YouTube channel is exclusively for dentists only. It is not meant for my patients. I'm not going to place any patient education videos over it. I have a different channel, different purpose for it on my website only, where the patients download the videos and see it over there. So this is for my dentist colleagues. You can subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and because I posted a few videos last week also. Uh, just like these small messages, these many of the myths which I'll be say busting, debunking of various myths in the coming week, or in the coming weeks rather. I'll say I'll be posting 1 or 2 videos every week. I speak primarily on 3 topics, so I'll be covering all those 3 topics simultaneously or separately in different videos on practice management, medical legal ethics, and finance, of course. So I write for finance series into separate journals. One of them is in Idea Punjab. It is a quarterly series, and another one is in WGSR. And the 16 parts have been published, and part 17 and 18 will be out there soon. So the direct link to download that is also on my website. You can note the link, and feel free to get in touch with me if any link is not working or if you have any problem facing that. So I run a few practice management groups also, 5 of them, because I like to keep it simple. So I have not made a sixth one. Fifth practice management, the fifth group is full. There are about 5-6 people in waiting, but the finance group has a few slots available. So as and when, because people keep on leaving groups, as and when some people leave the group, I can add you to there. Even if you are in waiting, you can send a personal message to me on my cell. So kindly do send your valuable feedback either to me or in the in the comment section where the session will be conducted, is being conducted. So bouquets and brickbats both would be welcome in equal measure. I hope, and I have just overshot the time by 50%, as I mentioned at the start. But the only aim was to simplify things for you, and I hope I am successful in my venture. So thank you so much for a patient hearing. So I'll stop the share here. Dr. Girish, we can take up the queries if there are any.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session. I believe that I have to revise it a couple of times. I have to see it one more time, or at least a couple of times, to at least understand it on a deeper level. All right. We have a couple of questions with us. All right. Any special loan schemes for doctors? Sometimes we need to invest in equipments and replacements that are costly. Do you suggest taking bank loans for such regular needs?
See, my father has taught me one thing: always try to avoid loans. He was a banker himself for 34 years. But yes, I understand in today's scenario, it is not entirely possible to avoid that, because in those days, the clinic could be opened up with a meager amount or a small amount. And today, the interiors and the exteriors have to be done well. But yes, coming to the query part, nationalized banks would be offering them at slightly cheaper cost, but then their processing time is more compared to private banks who have a slightly higher rate of interest, uh, uh, plus they have a higher processing fee, but their processing time is say comparatively much lesser. And obviously, as I said, many a times the balance sheet is taken care of, seen before according any loan, and then your CIBIL score is also checked whether you have defaulted in the past or not. And yes, in today's scenario, when the banks when the RBI has decreased the repo rate consistently in the past 2.5 months or so, I always advise to take a loan based on MCLR. So not based on the repo rate. You can obviously, these are long topics. Just read about these in my articles. I've given enough of food for thought in my WGSR series on mutual funds, which I just shared now.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. There is one more question. What about timing? Also, all right. This is, I guess it is a continued question. Okay. Sometimes patients get reimbursed from offices and demand receipts of different amounts and of different treatment, so they can submit in their office. Should we do this kind of thing, or how to manage this particular setup?
See, the session started with the receipt in the say bill books concept only. If you are upright and if you are following a correct system, nobody can force you to do so. So you can always, if you are playing harakiri and you are fudging your own records, then the patient has also say can see a loophole in that. So once you are doing it, you can show it to the patient that our whole system is recorded in this ways, and the days you have actually paid, I can give you receipt for that also. We only stoop to such measures just for the risk of losing the patient. But then the patient doesn't come to you for bill. The patient comes to you for your treatment, what you offer, what your skills are, and not for that the dentist issues your bill. So obviously the health is the first priority, the bill is the second priority. So just make these things clear. If any patients ask for a reimbursement, tell him the day and the mode you pay, the same day and mode you'll be getting the receipt. The problem only comes in March or April. Some people say we'll get the treatment in April, but kindly issue us the bill for March. So the end of the financial year. Remember, if you are issuing a bill for March, you are increasing your tax liability. You're increasing your income actually. So you'll be paying more tax on the amount which you have not already received.
Right.
And if you did it in March 2020, you remember what happened in April 2020. The clinics were closed.
Right.
So don't indulge in such things. That is what I'll advise. If you should be morally upright for that. My dad has told me never stoop to such measures, and I always stick by them.
All right. Okay. One more question. Nowadays, we are working only for half the time in the day, only in the morning or the evening session. How to make up for the lost income without burdening on the patient?
That I think this doctor has not watched the previous session. The only thing is that you have to smartly increase your charges. And yes, the incomes will be less. We discussed in the first session also, first Sunday also, and today also some in part. There will be there. But yes, as I said, 2020 is a year of cyclones, tiddies, earthquakes, obviously COVID also. So if we escape unhurt through these episodes, count your blessings and count yourself lucky. There will be times for earning for us. That is what it makes the say consolidating of your emergency fund. This is for these rainy days only, and these are the rainy days going on. So emergency fund means your 6 months expenses or your 3 months actual income should be kept in your piggy bank or kind of a say stored space which you can use for your say emergency needs. And these are the times which we had never envisaged that we will get it. Nobody thought that the world will come to a standstill, but it did. That is what the emergency fund is for. So
Right.
yes, presently we are having less incomes, but be optimistic, be hopeful. Good times will come. Be thankful to God in what we are getting. Be thankful we are getting 3 meals a day and our family members are safe and unhurt and say healthy, and you are also healthy. So don't take stress. Be positive. Good times will come.
All right. Okay. Whether an MDS student getting stipend has to pay an income tax?
No, no, he doesn't have to pay income tax,
All right.
but he has to file a IT return.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is basically dependent upon the amount you get.
Yeah. If you're crossing the tax slab, then you are supposed
If
to
you're
pay.
crossing the basic slab of 2.5 gross income, then you are say supposed to file the ITR. Anyone getting above 21,000 per month, which translates to 2,52,000 per year, if we talk annual figures, then yes, he has to file the ITR. It might be a zero ITR. In any case, till even after making your say clinic expense, of course, the MDS student will not have any clinic expenses, but deducting any deductions if he make for savings and all, if his income is below 5 lakhs, then in any case, the government of India has mandated that he pays nil tax.
Right. All right. While repaying the home loan, they asked to choose either to reduce the tenure or to reduce EMI. Which is the better option?
I'm sorry, didn't get it. Sorry, please repeat.
While repaying the home loan, they ask to choose either to reduce the tenure or to reduce the EMI. Which is the better option?
It depends upon your own pocket, what you want to choose. But as I said, the basic clause, wherever you say opt for it in the initial part, is linked to your MCLR or the repo rate. So if you preferably choose a MCLR, you'll not get the immediate benefit of the repo rate by the RBI, but that benefit has to be passed on by the banks within 3 to 6 months of the say reduction in repo rate by the banks. And most private banks do it in the first say first 15 to 30 days itself only, the passing on of the benefits.
All right. Okay. Um, for card payments, we have to pay rent for the machine and for the credit card also. Any option for the best swipe machine other than M swipe? I think this is a little bit
It's
different.
okay. It's okay. The only thing is that most banks have a charge over all machines. This was a trick which I'll say missed by most of the banks in the post demonetization period in November 2016 when the government encouraged the digital currency. So every bank came up with the option in different forms. The say GPRS type machines were there, the wired machines were there, and the third MSWIFT was launched at that time only. Yes, by SDFC or Axis it was coming before also, but even they were not much prevalent because the data was not that cheap before that, because it was only in September 2016 when Geo was launched that actual digital revolution came in, and we used to pay 250 rupees for 1 GB, and now we are getting it to 1.5 GB at free per day. So that is the difference in that. So M swipes are not that popular, but yes, every machine comes with the charges. uh, there is not much of a difference, but if your clinic is in a static location, I'll suggest you to go in for a wired machine. That is always a better option, because the at least you'll have the employees visiting you regularly for updation of the software. For M swipe, the service for most banks is hopeless. Yes, there might be
Right.
exceptions, but what is the fun of carrying the machine? You're not treating on the road, so the machine
Exactly.
will any case will be in your clinic only. So why not a wired machine? So it doesn't make any difference.
All right.
Wired machines obviously come with a lesser rental comparatively than M swipe.
Right. 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 All right. One more question, and okay, will we be talking about insurance like life insurance, term, professional, etc. in the
Yes,
coming Sundays?
in the basics in brief on the fourth part of this when we talk about investments, but
Uh,
basic in brief only, not in
on
much
the,
detail, because these are itself very large topics.
okay, that will be on the 28th of this month.
28th of June, yes.
All right. All right. Okay, sir. I guess we have to wrap it up. These were the questions. I hope everyone got their queries solved. And thank you so much, sir, for helping us out today. We are looking forward to the third session on the third Sunday, that is 21st of this month at 6 p.m. Uh, I guess, yeah. We don't have any more questions. Let's wrap it up. All right. Good evening, sir. Have a
Thank you
yeah.
so much, Underdog Dentist Squad. Thank you, Dr. Grease. Thank you, Dr. Weber. He is not visible, but he's in the background doing all the hard work. So obviously, you can't take the credit away from Grease. He's sitting constantly over there. So his hard work is no less. But yes, I'll appreciate if all of you go through the part one video. Those who have not seen the part two video, those who didn't attend the part one, kindly go through the part one video. The links are updated. And these links will be also updated in 24 hours by Dr. Girish. So watch both of them together. Many of the missing links would be joining them together, and I'll appreciate if you post in your honest feedback to this. I've tried to simplify it, but yes, there might be certain points which might not be clear to a few of you. So kindly feel free to get in touch with me. I give my numbers in the presentation, or post your feedback on my number or on the UDS page itself, or in the session on the link where the session is happening. Thank you so much once again for patient hearing on a Sunday evening. So looking forward to the third session on 21st June.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll be adding both the session in our. There is a separate section on our page now. We call it units. So you can watch both of these videos and the coming Sundays the whatever we'll be posting on 21st and 28th, there will be a separate unit. You can go back and check the left side of your left side of the group, and you can see units. You can check all the 4 Sundays labeled there. You can easily find both the lectures. And please drop a comment and please tell us about the lectures, how if you have any questions, we'll be happy to solve it for you. All right. Have a great evening, everyone. Goodbye.